We are so excited to have you here today to celebrate the League's 103rd birthday. When I look back at all we've accomplished since our founding, I'm extremely proud. Today we're going to celebrate that legacy. We will begin by looking at what women were experiencing in the early 1900s and what our foremothers were doing about it and how the League began. And then we'll explore some of the highlights of our local League, including some of what we have accomplished to light the fires of change and to protect our democracy. We hope to inspire you to think about ideas you might have for future projects or programs and how you might use your talents to become more involved. We will give you some tips that we have learned along the way, which might help you with future projects. Some projects or events come forth by a simple kernel of an idea and grow into something really cool. Others are out and out impossible to achieve, but we go for the gold and do them anyway. We will end with a time for you to brainstorm with those at your table about ideas you might have for future events and skills you have that you might like to share with the League. We're anxious to hear your ideas. We'll start with the background in the beginning. It's important to explore the status of women and the minimal rights of women in history. Women had few rights in the early 1800s. Women could not vote or hold public office. They had no access to higher education. They were excluded from most professional occupations. They could not make legal contracts or sue. They could not own property. They could not gain custody of their children in case of divorce. And they had no legal control over their own earned wages. Women were not given the right to vote. They fought for it. Securing women's right to vote and other rights took years and years of hard work and a struggle across the country. It took a lot of courage, tenacity, and innovative ideas. This is Marge Udall representing Arizona in the 1913 suffrage parade in Washington, D.C. This is Ann Howard Shaw and Carrie Chapman Catt leading the suffragettes in the 1917 New York City parade. Women had over 7 decades of struggles for equal citizenship and the basic right of democracy, the vote. They were imprisoned for picketing outside of the White House. Look at this picture. That's the White House in the back, and you've got the ladies in the front. They didn't have any tennis shoes on. They had their corsets on. They had their long coats on in the dead of winter, and they're freezing to death. And then they were picketing in the summer when it was so hot and they were so overwhelmed with the heat. They did this year in and year out. They faced public disdain, humiliation, rotten eggs, violent opposition, and prison as they petitioned, campaigned, lobbied, marched, and pleaded for their civil rights as citizens. Today, when you go out and you lobby and you march, you don't have to worry about being put in prison. Just think what they were gambling at that point in time. But there's more. They were clubbed, beaten, and tortured by the guards. Rats ran in and out of their unlit cells. Prisoners held contests to count the number of maggots in their food. I never heard of these things until I took a women's college course and was exposed to all these facts. I hope someday the League will put together a one-day curriculum and go in and educate the young people to this history. I think if girls learned what their foremothers went through to get the right to vote, they would never miss voting in their lifetime. While they were imprisoned, they went on hunger strikes, and they were held down and force-fed through their noses. How many of you have ever envisioned what they really went through? Would you be willing to do that for a cause? After decades of agitation and protest, on June 4, 1919, Congress passed the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, granting all white American women, the right to vote. It was ratified on August 18, 1920, and it read, The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. One sentence is all it is. And on paper it seemed to expand voting rights to all women. But in practice it would be decades before Black, Indigenous, and people of color would be able to exercise that right. Raise your hand if you know when women in Arizona got the right to vote. It was 8 years before women did nationally, so Arizona was on the cutting edge. In 1914, Arizona women participated in their first primary election, and the first woman is elected to Arizona State Senate. Her name was Frances Willard Munns. Just think about that. In 1914, the first time women in Arizona got the right to vote, and they elected a woman to the Senate. And here it is how many years later, and we still have never elected a woman to president. Now, efforts have been launched to place a statue of Frances in the Wesley Bolin Memorial Plaza. For those that have gone to the White House or down to the Capitol, you've probably seen that. And it will be the first statue of a woman on state land in Arizona. When addressing the 1919 National American Women's Suffrage Association's 50th convention, President Carrie Chapman Catt proposed creating a League of Women Voters to finish the right and aid in the reconstruction of the nation. The next chapter begins. The League of Women Voters is conceived. So the League of Women Voters was formally organized on February 14th, 1920. Now that should be an easy date to remember. At their national organizational meeting in Chicago. This was 6 months before the ratification of the 19th Amendment on August 18th, 1920. And that's why we're here today, to celebrate and have our cake. So as stated by Carrie Chapman Catt, the purpose of the new organization, quote, "The League of Women Voters is not to dissolve any present organization, but to unite all existing organizations of women who believe in its principles. It is not to lure women from partisanship, but to combine them in an effort for legislation, which will protect coming movements, which we cannot even foretell." The mission of the League. As a nonpartisan political organization, our mission is to encourage the informed and active participation of citizens in government. Our goal? To empower citizens to take action and shape better communities. So the League has two roles: voter service, citizen education, presenting unbiased, nonpartisan information about elections, the voting process, and issues. And number two, action and advocacy. Voter services performs many tasks. I believe in our League that Bonnie Jackson is the head of the voter services. And these are some of the things that they do: registering new voters, registering new citizens after the naturalization ceremonies, educating voters about current issues, making registration and voting information available through a variety of means, including a website, vote411.org. And if none of you have ever used this when you're voting, go to vote411.org. It is amazing. You type in your address, it brings up your ballot, and then all the candidates that are running for every office, they will have their stance on issues. What happens is the League of Women Voters sends out questionnaires to all people who are running. So they all get the same questionnaire, so they're all answering the same questions. And then they turn it into the League, and the League posts it on the website. Now, if they have grammatical errors, they have punctuation that's not right, whatever, it's going to go in exactly how they sent it. And if they don't send it in, then they have an empty spot after their name. And before, when I go out to look at these, because most of these offices, you really don't know the people. Even if they spend $1 million on ad campaigns, you still don't know what their stances are. So I've called some of the candidates before and said, hey, I'm trying to vote. I don't know what your stances are. If you don't fill out this League of Women Voter questionnaire, I'm not voting for you, and I don't. Also, they publish and distribute voter guides, candidate questionnaires across the state every 2 years, printed in both Spanish and English. So, action and advocacy. We study key issues in an unbiased manner. We work to build citizen participation in the democratic process. We empower and encourage people to influence public policy and promote positive solutions to issues through education and advocacy. Although we are nonpartisan, which means we neither support nor oppose any political candidate or party, we do use our positions to advocate for or against policies at all levels of government. And so if you want to know what our positions are, you can go out on the website and they have a booklet called Impact on Issues, a guide to public policy positions. It lists all 58 league positions, and this is the website if you want to do that. You can also buy this booklet on Amazon. So how are league positions created? Positions are created following a process of study, whether it be national, state, or local. The study is thorough in its pursuit of facts and details, and after members across the U.S. reach consensus on the proposed position, and there is agreement by 2/3 or more of league delegates at the National Convention, the League of Women Voters National Board forms positions based on that consensus. So you might ask, how are these positions ever revised or updated? Well, this can be done by concurrence, which is using the work done by another league in studying an issue. But this too must ultimately be passed by 2/3 of the delegates at the National Convention. Now the really important part, putting positions into action. We hope, sharing some of our league's past achievements and activities, it will inspire you to take action with us. Ways we take action, the Ask It wagon. So you can see how they did it in the olden days and how we're doing it today. We conducted televised presidential candidate debates for many years. After 16 years of no public presidential debates, the League of Women Voters sponsored 3 debates in 1976. They sponsored the presidential and vice presidential debates for the next 8 years, from 1976 to 1984. Then the Democratic and Republican national parties came together in a decision to move sponsorship of the debates under the preview of their own parties. The League challenged this move, and it sparked widespread public debate on the matter. But in the end, the League decided not to sponsor them with the rules and the restrictions the 2 parties were imposing on the format. We helped write and advocate for legislation. In the 1930s, League members worked successfully for the enactment of the Social Security and Food and Drug Acts. In 2023, we used a Request to Speak, an online tool that lets everyday citizens give Arizona state lawmakers our feedback on bills. And this Request to Speak is very easy to use. We've had some programs on it. And you just go out to the website and you put in a bill number. And then you can just give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or you can give a written response, however you want to do it. So you can do it right from the comfort of your own home using your computer. You don't have to go down to the state capitol to give input. The League has pushed for ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment, also known as the ERA, since it was first introduced in Congress in 1972. In 2020, Virginia was the 39th state to ratify the ERA, meeting the legal requirement to change the Constitution. However, 51 years later, it is still in limbo because some lawmakers have filed lawsuits to stop it. And it reads, "Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the U.S. or any state on the account of sex." It is one sentence long. And it was very popular back in 1972 when it was introduced. And it was the Republicans, the Democrats, everybody was supportive of it. And it was destined to pass until, you might remember the name, Phyllis Schlafly. And she led the Stop ERA campaign, arguing that it would lead to women being drafted by the military and to have public unisex bathrooms and ruin the family. Can anyone give me some of the programs and committees our league has focused on over the years? Some of the issues we focused on: voter service engagement, healthcare, education, environment, and civic engagement. Some of the issues Additional topics we have covered in our membership meetings, so we didn't focus on them, but we're trying to educate both ourselves and others about them, is ranked choice voting, election reform, gerrymandering, immigration, prison reform, North Valley Connect. This is a volunteer transportation program which served 17,000 local clients in 2021. And our own Bonnie Boyce Wilson is the one that made this happen. It's a very successful program that's needed by seniors out here that can't drive or shouldn't be driving. And sex trafficking. So there's 4 ways that the League of Women Voters of Arizona has provided statewide leadership. According to Bonnie Saunders, and many of you know her, she was the previous local league president, plus she was the state president. And she's moved to California, but she's still active in our league. And she said there are at least 4 things about Arizona that makes us superior to quite a few states.
Years, I've served as president in most other aspects of the board. I spoke to their annual meeting, bragging on the 4 political things about Arizona that makes Arizona superior to many and probably most states in the United States. The first thing was an initiative that passed as a referendum in 1974, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Arizona, that set up a system of the merit selection of judges. This provided an alternative in the larger counties, a way that judges did not have to run for election and be funded by lawyers who might appear before them in some future time, which was a major conflict of interest. This initiative passed. In 1992, the League of Arizona also sponsored a second initiative referendum that judges have to be retained after the first 4 years they served. This Judicial Performance Review Commission evaluates them as to how good a judge they have been for 4 years. There's a survey sent to everyone who appears before them. There are other ways the members of the commission, many of whom are league members, by the way, they talk to the judges, interview them, and set up an evaluation system that decides, have they been a good enough judge to be retained for the next 4 years? The Judicial Performance Review Commission judges, gives them a grade. I'm a teacher, I love giving grades. Gives grades, and if they have a poor performance, the grade is low, and someone would say to this judge, you really should not run for retention. You've not done a good job. We will give you a poor grade in our judgment, and you should say if a judge gets an 80 or above, they are worthy of being retained. if it's below 80, they are not. It is in the Secretary of State's booklet. Look at it. It's at the end. And it's an easy way of knowing whether you should say yes or no for someone you don't know, because you know what these people, and they are not partisan. They're not specifically chosen for their partisanship or lack thereof. No one should skip the judges because obviously it is an important job. And but the league was responsible for the entire process over several years, and the work of a lot of league members.
So that's two of the things that you think are really important that the league.
Clean elections is the next one.
Okay.
And clean elections was the first initiative referendum that I encountered when I joined the League of Women Voters of Northwest Maricopa County in October of 1998. It was on the ballot, and I learned about this proposition. I moved to Arizona at the end of September, learned from my first league meeting in Arizona from Lila Schwartz, who had actually participated in the writing of the Clean Elections Initiative, along with Carol Mattoon, who's standing in front of you, and Marge Mead, who was a fantastic lobbyist during most of my time in Arizona. Clean Elections provides money for people who are willing to run if they can collect a small amount of money from a whole bunch of people, and then they are given enough money to run a statewide election or a district election. It's on state offices only. It means that you don't have to be beholden to people with deep pockets, and the state legislature didn't like that. Every year since it passed in 1998, the state legislature has done damage to it, a little bit at a time. It seems to be the first go round, a lot of very interesting people ran who wouldn't have run if they'd had to collect a lot of money from other people. But there were people, it broadened the number of people who could participate in state elections. The league, our own league, Northwest Maricopa County, was responsible for a lot of the signatures. Carol Mattoon was in charge of that, and she and Marge promoted the signature gathering, and our league was responsible for a lot of signatures. I don't know how many, but a lot of them. Probably would not have passed without us and our lobbying for people, our explanation of why people should vote for it, as the first meeting I had in Arizona. There was an episode, some of you have just learned about RTS, and that allows you to tell the legislators what you think about bills today. At any rate, there was a year where a committee had before it some really bad to do some damage. The state league and our local league put on a full court press asking everyone who had a computer to send an email to as many of those committee members as they could or were willing to do. And we changed the minds of every person on the committee except the chair. And I thought that was really interesting, that the league can make a difference. There are other occasions where we've made a difference as well, but this one sticks in my mind because of how much it did, and I think that was a lot. Redistricting was passed in 2000. The state league did promote the idea of an independent redistricting commission. It is one of probably half a dozen. Arizona is one of perhaps half a dozen states that have such a one. California, where I am now, also has one. The Independent Redistricting Commission is made up of 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and it is chaired by a person who's not affiliated with a party, nonpartisan person. Are people who have a mission to draw lines in a rational way instead of a crazy partisan way like a lot of legislatures do. They go around the state and they talk to people, ordinary people like you and me, and they have ideas and they draw the lines and they send out their maps and then they get criticism and then they go and talk to people some more. And they try really hard not to be overly partisan. They are less, the lines are less partisan than the state legislature would do it. I have full confidence in that. And I remember the party that the state league gave to the first the members of the first Independent Redistricting Commission. And we really promoted this, and this is a good government thing. In 2012, I went back to the Canton League of Women Voters.
So in summary, our members helped write and secure passage of 2 initiative constitutional amendments. In 1974, it was the merit selection of judges, and in 1992, it was the Commission on Judicial Performance Review, and they helped write and pass 2 initiatives. In 1998, the Clean Elections legislation, which was also called Campaign Finance Reform, and in 2000, the Citizens Independent Redistricting Commission, which will redraw congressional and legislative districts after each consensus. So the writing and passage of in 1998 of the Citizens Clean Election Act. I was part of this, so I will give you a little bit of an overview of it. It was a huge cutting-edge victory. In 1995, a small group of people decided to write a Citizens Campaign Finance Reform Initiative to reduce big money's influence on state elections. The initiative would offer candidates full public financing if they agreed not to take any private funds and accept spending limits. Despite the low chance of success, the League of Women Voters of Arizona joined the team of authors. The final team consisted of 7 members, 3 of which were from our league, and it was a very diverse group. So this team met for 1 full day a year for 2 years, writing the initiative, arguing, and trying to be sure they covered every aspect of the problem with a workable solution. So the advantage of having a diverse group and arguing over every word is that when it's done, then it's pretty apt to be fair and comprehensive. So once we were done with that, then two Phoenix lawyers volunteered their time to review the act to be sure it was legally sound. Then it was sent to lawyers around the United States for their critiquing, so we would be sure it would be held up in court, as we were sure that it would be challenged, and it has been almost every year since. So an overview, it established a system for the public funding of qualified candidates for legislative and statewide offices in Arizona. Candidates would then be beholden to citizens, not special interest groups who financed their campaigns. It created the Citizens Clean Elections Commission to enforce the Act's provisions, including nonpartisan voter education and overseeing the clean election funds. So we were the second state to even try to pass such an initiative across the United States. And so one of the things that was important in writing this is having it successfully funded for candidates. So where do the election funds come from, you might ask? Well, 10% surcharge on all civil penalties and criminal fines. Civil penalties paid by candidates. So oftentimes you hear, I don't want to have campaign finance reform legislation because I don't want my tax dollars going to fund some candidate that I don't like. Well, under our bill, that's very easy. It took care of it. Don't break the law. So also there's $5 qualifying contributions collected from participating candidates. So each candidate that run, it depends on what office they're running for, how many $5 contributions they have to collect. And this is really to show that they're viable candidates with support, not just somebody that's going to have a little fun trying to run for office. And the most important part, there is no tax increase. So these are some of the leaguers from our local league that help provide both writing and the passage of this. So in the back, in the center, the tall lady is Lila Swartz, and she was the Arizona State President of the league. Next to her is Gina Peterson, and she was the president of our local league. And then in front, holding the Tide container, because we were cleaning up politics, you know, that's Marge Mead, Secretary Extraordinaire. And on the far left is me in my younger days. But it took league members from across the state to make it happen. And as a result of working on this, our local membership grew to over 100, with people who wanted to be actively involved in a project that made a difference. It was so exciting. We had, I think, 99.9% of our members were getting out there. It didn't matter what your age is. You got out there with your card table and your chair, and you set up your sign, and you gathered signatures. And everybody was involved. It was really, really exciting. So we boldly went for the gold, and we won. And it would have never passed if it was not for the league's involvement, from its writing to gathering thousands of signatures to get it on the ballot, to educating the public about its value. So just a couple facts about the Clean Elections campaign. In the next election, the number of candidates increased 24%. Both parties had full slates for statewide offices, which is very unusual. We didn't usually have that before, because if you didn't have money or you didn't want to sell your soul to the highest bidder, you couldn't run. So we now had a lot more candidates that could run. In MoveOn's 2004 book, 50 Ways to Love Your Country, How to Find Your Political Voice and Become a Catalyst for Change, they included Arizona's campaign and win. That was exciting too. The book was on the bestsellers list, so we received international recognition. And leaders came from around the world to learn what we did and how we did it. It has been taken to court almost every year except one. In fact, it even went to the U.S. Supreme Court in 2011, but is still effective and making a difference. In 2022, 31 Arizona candidates ran clean. That's 23% of them. 16 for the House, 7 for the Senate, 2 superintendents, 4 corporate commissioners, 1 governor, 1 mine inspector. And we have fun in the league, and we make friends while we work. These are just some simple pictures of things that we've done. Volunteered at the food bank. We set up our tent to give information and register voters. You know, we set up a table at some of the, like a summit. This is our board meeting. We have some fun, exciting meetings at the board meetings, creating new projects. And we register new voters. So this is the old one where the ladies had a little house they had for voter service, and then this is some of our ladies now. We register new citizens after the naturalization ceremony. For those who have volunteered to do that, they say it really brings a tear to your eye when you watch these naturalization ceremonies. And so we're there as they become new citizens, and we immediately register them so that they can vote in every upcoming election. We have hosted many successful educational, community-wide events. In 2003, We hosted one called Balancing Civil Rights and National Security. Just before the beginning of the Iraq invasion and the country was alarmed by the passage of the Patriot Act. I don't know how many of you remember the Patriot Act, but this happened right after 9/11, and the government was given the permission to go in your home and not tell you. They could go through your home and your belongings, they could go through your computer, they could take your computer and never even tell you that they were there. You would think this is Russia. Well, people were in an uproar over that. So we networked with the Daily News Sun and 9 other organizations to host a community-wide program to address these urgent issues. We jumped on something, so we were timely in our programming. By networking with a newspaper, we had excellent front page coverage. I really encourage you, when you do big events, have them as a co-sponsor because they really give you great coverage. And because of that, we had over 300 people in attendance with standing room only, spilling out into the narthex of the Unitarian Church. In 2004, we hosted another community-wide program called Water, the New Liquid Gold. Don't be a drip, save the water. We created and networked with 43 organizations on a program exploring Arizona's water issues. I'm big on networking with other organizations. You get better turnout, you learn new people, you make contact with new people that believe like you do, and there's power in working together. And we received a $1,000 grant from National to develop and host this program. And we created t-shirts, which we all wore. We sold them both locally and at the upcoming League of Women Voter National Convention. And water is even a more relevant topic today. After these 2 events, we wrote an instructional paper, How to Conduct a Community-Wide Forum, which League of Women Voter US posted on their website. It made front page coverage on the LWV US newsletter. It was distributed by National to all members at the 2004 National Convention, and it was used nationally by other leagues. So I was at the National Convention that year, and people were seeking me out. There was 800 to 1,000 people, and I had so many people come up to me and thank me for presenting this, writing this paper and making it available to them because they used it and it really worked. So that really warmed the cockles of my heart. So at all national conventions, the National League recognizes outstanding league programs. So in 2004, they recognized our local league with a Citizen Award for reconnecting citizens with government. Our award reads, for developing a successful template for conducting balanced community-wide programs. So all the delegates from Arizona had their t-shirts on, Don't be a drip, save the water. And we went up on stage to receive our award, and we gave one to the national president, and we turned around and showed the back of our shirts too, and we got a good laugh from the audience, but we were very honored. In 2015, the league hosted another community-wide forum called Election Protection: Creative Solutions for Increasing and Sustaining Voter Participation. We held this at the Dysart High School, and we had 22 co-sponsors, including, get this, both the Democratic and Republican clubs. Now, how often does that happen? But if you don't ask, they can't say yes. So we had both Dysart teachers and students actively involved. We were concerned that if we didn't get the students thinking about voting before the program, they'd probably be sitting there on their phones or bored to death. So we tried to think of a way to get them actively involved. So we came up with a bookmark contest. And 8 teachers involved their classes, a variety of classes that you would have never thought the teachers would have been excited about, but they got their students thinking. We had 51 students from 4 high schools participated. 8 designs were entered. The winner's design was used on the City of Surprise voting material for years. I'm not sure if it still is or not, but I know it was for years. And the Dice Art graphic art class printed the winning bookmarks. So the day that we had our community-wide forum, when people came in, there was one sitting on their chairs. And I know that we've handed those bookmarks out for years. So we had excellent attendance by students in the community. We had excellent coverage by the media. And by working with the City of Surprise and the school, they both had professional TV cameras. And the City of Surprise has their own TV station. And for the next year, they showed this program on their channel. We hosted the first and only, so far, Voting Rights Summit. In 2016, we decided to go big and hold a statewide Voter Rights Summit. A dynamic team was built, and it took about a year to put it in place. Since this was the first statewide summit the League had ever undertaken, there was no blueprint for putting one together. We faced one hurdle after another. But the planning team worked so well together that we overcame each one, and in the end, it was so great. It was held at ASU, and people from around the state attended, including 5 county recorders. We had young and old men and women, a variety of races, so it was really exciting. And it took a village to put this on. We had 65 volunteers, 17 of which came from our league, 14 speakers, 43 of non-league members joined that day, which was 90 new members from across the state joining on one day. And 18 of those joined our local league. We had 15 breakout groups, and we had 300 people that made it through the lunch line in 20 minutes, and I was quite proud of that. We had a really nice lunch. It was a full-day conference. So the timing happened to be perfect. I'd like to take credit that we just had it planned so well, but timing was perfect. It was held on January 7th, 2017, right after the 2016 presidential election, if you happen to remember that election. People who were never political before were fired up, and they were wanting to do something. And 27% of those who attended were league members, which meant that 73% were just community people who were looking for ways to get involved, and we were that vessel. So many had never even heard of the league before, and this was a great introduction to the league's work and to get them involved. In 2018, at the National Convention, we were seated at the honorees table. We had put together, after hosting these 2 events, we had learned so much about producing community-wide and state events. We decided to create a booklet to help other leagues plan equally successful events. Thus we produced the booklet entitled Steps to Producing a Successful League of Women Voter Local, National, State, or National Event. The National Leagues, because of this event and because of this booklet, the National League selected our league as one of the 3 finalists from across the United States for their Strengthening Democracy Award. We were really honored to be recognized for our work. So Linda and I mentioned before, we belong to a National League of Women Voter group on healthcare. I've belonged to that group since about 2009. And this group, every year every national convention, we hold a caucus to help educate people about healthcare issues, insurance. We're a big supporter of single payer, expanded and improved Medicare for all. And so after these caucuses that we host, we put so much energy in doing our research, and then people are asking us about that. So we decided to create a healthcare reform toolkit that is full of resources that leagues from across the United States can use to educate themselves and prepare presentations for their local leagues and communities. So if you ever want to learn more, or if you ever want to put on a program, go out to this healthcare reform toolkit. It is full of resources, and we keep it updated. So Linda and I have worked on healthcare projects since at least 2019, and we created a PowerPoint entitled Healthcare Choices for the Future of Healthcare, Facts versus Myths. And we presented it at different venues around the Valley in the annual League of Women Voter Arizona convention. We didn't wait for people to come to one of our meetings. We went to theirs. All groups are looking for speakers, and so, if we only host a meeting, we might have 20 to 40 people. But if we're giving this out in the community, we're hitting a lot more people. This is one of 5 educational forums sponsored by the League and several other organizations. Joy Cole and John Cole headed these up. We had excellent speakers and a great turnout. We've published and distributed many publications. If you're interested in them, we have copies of them. One of the things that you can do as an individual is write opinion letters. Now, you can do that with information you've learned from the League, but if you want to have the League name, you have to get permission to do that from the League. And Linda and I sent these to the, I can't think of the one, but it's the publication, the political publication that all the politicians and people who are interested in politics in Arizona look to. And they had a 300-word limit. And Linda and I worked on this response letter over and over, and we couldn't get it under 700 words. We just felt every word was really important. And we were told, they'll never print it. They'll never print it. It's way too many words. But we went for the gold, and lo and behold, they printed every single word. So don't be afraid to push the boundaries and go for the gold. For many years, we hosted a holiday book drive to collect books for Dysart Library. This was started 20 plus years ago by Doris Flax, and we continue it today. And our members have donated thousands and thousands of dollars worth of books. We have a role in the international arena. The League helped lead the effort to establish United Nations and assure U.S. participation. They helped supported the creation of the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, NATO, economic aid to less developed countries, and the Marshall Plan. They served as delegates to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Our own Dr. Michelle Dorsey from the Metro Phoenix League served in 2018 as the League representative at the United Nations. Now, this wasn't just a meeting. She served for a whole year. She left her family and went to be our representative. We were really proud of her. So you might ask, is being involved work or fun? We say both, and so rewarding. So here's a few pictures of things of us doing. Had party at Linda's house, giving our presentations. The election protection, we volunteered for that. This is one of our boards. So we do a lot of things. And this is, we march, we protest, we stand up, and we defend our democracy. I happened to get this shirt at the National Convention. That's one of the fun things of going to National Convention. You get to see other leagues' wares, what they're selling, and get them. We also were part of the huge nationwide 2019 Women's March. These are some of our local league members and Metro Phoenix League members marching in downtown Phoenix. We go to our capitals to demonstrate and demand fair, inclusive elections. We go to our Arizona state capitol. We go to the national capitol. And Linda was chosen as our league representative to go this summer. And each league in Arizona, they sent one person, and National wanted us there so bad, they actually even paid for their way to go. And when they got back, then we got a half-page coverage, Arizona women protest for voting rights. We celebrate This is the league's 100th birthday party. It was held at the Capitol. Holiday parties, league style. We recognize members' efforts. The You Make a Difference Award was established in our local league in 2000 to honor those who have gone way beyond the call of duty. These are some of the recipients of that, and as you can see, the league is not just for women, it's also for men, and this is John Cole, who is one of our most valuable, hardworking members. Members share a variety of their talents. This is Martha Thompson. She's an award-winning quilter, and she donated two of her quilts to auction off to make money for the league. She was also once a caterer, and so she used her catering skills to create a committee to make a fun pizza meal for pre-meeting, get to know you, come straight after work events. We wanted to expand our attendance at our meetings to younger people who might still be working. And so, if you go home from work afterwards, you're not apt to go back out. So we did this so they could just stop on their way home from work and grab supper. Plus, it gave us all an opportunity to get to know each other better in a social setting. I'm big on creating t-shirts for most every event. So these are some of the shirts that we had. I would get them silk screened on the front and on the back, so it didn't matter if you were talking to somebody or you were standing in front of somebody in the grocery line. They could see your message. Now, every one of you has talents to share, which the league needs. Some of you are leaders, some followers. Some want to devote themselves to a cause. Others just want to offer a tidbit to a project. We need you all and your various interests and skills in whatever capacity you want to offer them. In summary, we are acting as a force to create positive, lasting change in our communities. We're working to ensure that all votes are counted and all voices can be heard. We're working together to make democracy work and have fun, build friendships, and do meaningful action. We hope we have inspired you to get involved and make a difference. We need your skills, ideas, energy going forward. Now that you have seen some of the amazing things we have accomplished in the past, we would like to give you 10 minutes to brainstorm with those at your table about things you would like to see the league do to continue this amazing journey.